Hey all, hope all is well. This is another video in the Road to Grandmaster series. And in this one, I'm going to be covering my round 9 game in the Charlotte GM-IM Invitational from January 2019. My opponent in this one was Magesh Panchanathan, a Grandmaster who I believe plays under the Indian flag still, although he's been living in the United States for many, many years and is a pretty well-known coach. And yeah, just a pretty good trainer that has a lot of chess programs in the U.S. Also a nice guy. I've worked alongside him at the Castle Chess Camp in Atlanta a few times. I've seen him in the tri-state area, particularly New York, at a few tournaments over the years. And yeah, just good guy to talk to. We get on pretty well. In any case, if you've seen my this tournament thus far for me, it's been a total train wreck. I'm on -3 after 8 rounds. What that means is that I've lost 3 games and drawn the rest. So really two and a half out of 8 with the 5 draws, 3 losses is really tough tournament for me. And going into this last round, I just had nothing really rolling in my favor. The other issue, again, I've alluded to it in previous videos, is I've actually was dealing with serious stomach pains that I've been pretty much battling the whole year. Now, I think at some point in the future, I will maybe talk a little bit more specifically about what it was. But at this point, and what it still is, but at this point in the year, in January, I actually went to the emergency room in the Bay Area International, and they diagnosed it as colitis. So I'm still experiencing colitis-esque symptoms, and colitis is irritation inflammation of the small intestine, and it just manifests itself in sharp stomach pains. So by round 9, I was really in bad shape. It was difficult to, even stand up straight for extended periods of time, let alone play chess and focus and do all the things that are required and high-level chess to be effective. So really tough going for me. In any case, I'm going to say all this I'm saying all this in part because the game ends very quickly. Magesh played knight f3. I played e6. Again, you'd seen this move order from me in the tournament thus far, where I'd kind of been inviting e4 openings with the e6 move order. Again, white can go into an e4 type of French type of position, but it's a little bit different. And after g3, I went d5, so back into the Queen's Gambit decline Catalan type territory. Bishop g2, knight f6, d4, bishop e7, castles. And with the move castles, Magesh actually offered me a draw. Now, I'm typically never the guy that accepts short draws. It's just not in my repertoire. I'm someone that really likes to prefer really long games, grind out games, fight to the end. But I was in such bad shape physically that this draw offer was like a reprieve to me, and I was really surprised that I got it. I think in part Magesh was not having a good tournament either. Sometimes in events, frankly, sometimes people actually plan their travel a little bit too close to the last round. So, having a quick last round game actually conveniently gives an opponent the chance to actually get out of there in good time. So I don't know entirely what Magesh's motivation is. I wasn't going to roll over, but I was definitely limping throughout the event, and accepting this draw was something I was actually comfortable with, given the circumstance. So it's just kind of funny I'm making a video on this because it's very anticlimactic, but I think and it's important to cover every game, however long or short it is, and just talk a little bit about the story, because there is a story behind every game. Now, because it's so short, I will give you some insight into some lines of the Catalan. So typically, I would have castled here if I played on. And black is normally anticipating the c4 move. And here black can choose basically two ways to play in my opinion. I mean, there's actually three, but two main ways. One is to take the pawn on c4. And the point of taking the pawn on c4 is that, you argue that this diagonal is not going to, for the bishop, is not going to bother you too much. And usually white tries to recover the pawn with queen c2. And there's some lines like this where black challenges the queen with tempo and gets the bishop on the long diagonal to contest the one on g2. So that's one way to play, taking on c4, playing a6. There's also a line with knight e5 here that white actually plays to recover the pawn with knight takes c4. Note that now the bishop on g2 is bearing down on the pawn on b7, so this a6, b5 plan is not good anymore. And this line is actually quite forcing. There's this knight c6, bishop c6, b takes e6, knight takes e6, queen d7, knight takes, queen takes. And this has also been played a whole ton in tournament practice. I think Kramnik brought it back to the fore in the candidates tournament, Kramnik versus Carlsen. So this is another line that could happen. There's even lines where they actually take knight takes c6 here and then knight a3. And the idea is to recover the pawn like this and have a nice structure. So now black actually gives up the bishop pair to ruin white's pawn structure and, get some play on the b file. And I know there's some lines that go bishop a6 here. So there's all kinds of lines in the Catalan. These are basically lines where d takes c4 is played. The alternative to playing d takes c4 is the argument of playing c6. And the idea here is saying, you know what? I don't want to allow this bishop to influence the long diagonal. And me taking c4 is kind of giving that bishop scope. So instead, I'm going to play really solidly. And in these lines, after c6, normally they go like queen c2, knight bd7, rook d1. And they're games like this, where white is really going to maybe play b3 or knight c3, or sometimes even gambit the pawn and get really active play in the center, sometimes with playing for e4. So that's another way to play the Catalan. So black really, in this position, after castles and c4, really has to decide which way to go. And it's really, the piece plays in many respects determined by the pawn structure. The last thing I will say is the third option. I'd say that it's probably the least popular is actually transposing back to a Tarish. The Tarish is not the most popular and doesn't have quite a solid reputation because after c takes d5, e takes d5, and knight c3, black has this potential isolated pawn on d5 after d takes c5 capture. And typically it's hard to play with the isolated pawn, especially with black when you haven't yet completed your development. And in the long term, that pawn on d5 can be a bit of a weakness. So most people aren't so keen on getting that structural deficit right away and having to just defend tenaciously, although it is a playable way to play the position. So in any case, like I said, after white castled here, offered me a draw, and I accepted it, and that was that. My nightmare January was over. This tournament I got 3 out of 9. The tournament at the Bay Area International in San Francisco, I think I got 5.5 out of 9, or no, I got 6 out of 9. But the issue is I played down so many times and drew so many opponents that I lost a lot of rating there as well. So in the month of January, I actually lost like 20 points, and my stomach was killing me throughout, and I was really hoping to get some of the medical treatment and the energy so that, I could continue this journey. So in any case, there were better months ahead, and you'll see those soon enough. So thanks for watching. Please like and or subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the Road to Grandmaster journey, please check out the description below. Thank you.